So I feel very fortunate that I've got to be, what?
No, it was so sweet. I was just listening.
Suddenly, when I turned up and saw the costume that they were putting on me, I was like, well, I guess I should have figured. He is huge.
Gobber's right leg is the one that's missing, and in our film here, it's his left leg, and that's because, yeah, I needed my left knee replaced.
Wow, you've lost everything. Your father, your tribe, your best friend. What are you gonna do about it?
Probably something stupid.
Well, you've already done that.
It's something crazy.
You're obviously both the right age to have grown up with the original How to Train Your Dragon film. So I wondered if you could both share just your early experiences of watching those growing up. What are the kind of key moments of you enjoying those films as kids?
I mean, what I loved so much about it is, obviously cute dragons. But, there's so many messages, in that film, especially as a kid, that, at least I took away from Hiccup and everybody else. But I think I love so much about How to Train Your Dragon, and also what we did in this one is there is so many messages, and you can relate to a lot of the characters. So watching the film, you can really, take a lot away from it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I used to, my dad, you've heard me say this so many times, I'm sorry. My dad read me and my sister the books.
Read you the books.
When we were little. So that was my first kind of taste of How to Train Your Dragon universe. And then, the movies came out when I was so much younger. They've kind of just always been in... it's one of those funny franchises where it kind of feels like similar to kind of like Harry Potter in that way. You can't really remember a time
No, it's just always been there.
How to Train Your Dragon. It's just always been there. So it's the fact that we're in any way part of it now is mind-boggling in a way.
Stepping back into a character that you've voiced in the past, was it quite instinctive to kind of know how to embody him in a more kind of full-bodied way rather than just in the voice booth?
I think it was partly, and then I was also partly surprised. I guess I hadn't really thought about, you would think I would have thought about this, but suddenly when I turned up and saw the costume that they were putting on me, I was like, well, I guess I should have figured. He is huge. So there was a lot of getting used to that because, stepping out when, firstly, you got to learn how to walk, and you got this helmet that keeps falling off your head. But as you get used to it, it became so empowering, and I felt completely transformed, and then could play within that. How, what is the posture? What do those moves mean? And then when do you play against all of that? And that size, who is somebody struggling with just a word, and an emotion, makes that twice as powerful. So I had a lot of fun with it in the end, but it was a hassle at the beginning, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I understand there was a point kind of pre-production while everything was getting sorted out where you might not have been able to play the part because of a schedule clash or something.
Yes.
Was the idea of someone else taking on that role, was that quite I don't know, how did that feel when you...
No, well, listen, I love this franchise, no matter what's happening. I wished it the best, and but I would have been sad, to not have been Stoick, because I had always wondered, when you're doing the voice, you go, what would it be like to actually be this character? What would it be like to actually be in that world? And then you go, would I do it? Would I be terrible at it? And then when you are actually there, you go, okay, the proof's in the pudding. Now I really got to, I got to bring it. So it felt good, but it would have been weird. I think, kind of saying, God knows to who, why'd he do it like that? I'd have said it like this. Yeah. Or even worse, like, God, that's great. I would never have thought of that.
Were there particular scenes that you were, having voiced them in the animation, that you were particularly looking forward to kind of doing in the full live action version? Were there any that you kind of marked in your calendar as looking forward to that day?
I both looked forward to and slightly dreaded my big scenes, the speeches, because you're doing it in front of hundreds of people, and you are that guy. So you're not just a Viking. I'm surrounded by Vikings, but you are the Viking. You are the chieftain. You're a great warrior, and you got to present all of that, but you also got to bring in so much color, right? Because it's very easy to get into caricature and generalizations and to make it a bit cheap. I could just keep, and then you go, where's all the color that I can bring in those moments? So I was looking forward to them, especially my scene in the Great Hall where I'm kind of warmongering basically. And because for me, it wasn't just me bringing my performance, it was also bringing the performance of everybody else, because they're long days. And when you say to background actors, come on, bring it, that's fine. On the second, third, on take 10, it's like, yeah, I was there like, come on! And I actually changed my scene to make sure that in every take, they had to be, bringing that energy in. And that scene, when we filmed it, was electric. And when I watch it in the movie, I go, okay, really happy with that. I don't want to take away from my scenes with my son, because they were epic, climbing into the smaller, more emotional, heartbreaking parts of fatherhood. Not a leader, not those big speeches, but being a father to this kid that I find so hard to connect with, but who I love dearly.
So how much did you kind of want to lean on the previous film when it came to, I guess, your performance? Obviously it's different in that it's not animated. You are playing her as a real human, but
look, I mean, Dean was really keen that we not be that, but I think when you do make something which has an existing iteration of it, then I think you have to be respectful of what went on, and then use that, I guess, as a kind of boundary to work in between. You can do whatever you want as long as you're saying, oh, he's this and this is already set up, so he's also that, but all this is up for grabs, if you know what I mean.
Were there any kind of scenes that you were, like, having seen the animated version, that you were excited kind of going into the film to do in?
Well, scenes that I wasn't in, really. I mean, apart from little bits and pieces when we're, at the end when when Hiccup is fighting the Red Death with Toothless, it's like, is that what it's called, the Red Death? The massive dragon at the end. It's like, I always wanted, asking throughout the whole film, the kind of only questions I had for Dean was like, well, the dragons are animated in the animation, and how are you then gonna animate something to not make it look like an animation, if you know what I mean? And he's like, trust me, it will be fine. And then it worked. It's like they're alive. It's amazing.
I read there was a kind of life imitating art situation, in that you were having your knee replacement surgery just before playing the role as well. Were you kind of able to draw on that in a sense when you were?
Well, yeah. I mean, the limp, and that's all. That's all me. Because and also that's why in the animated version, Gobber's right leg is the one that's missing, and in our film here, it's his left leg, and that's because I needed my left knee replaced. And Dean was like, "Well, don't get it done. Use it, and we'll make that leg your bad one, and then let's So the limp and the agony, and that was all real."
Yeah, I was speaking to your director Dean about the casting process, and
Isn't he just the sweetest?
Is he the best person of all
man.
time?
Yeah, and obviously great that there's a connection with the animated film there as well. But he was talking about how, there was chemistry reads with various different pairings, and you kind of tried out with different actors and stuff. What was it like the first time you guys were in a room together reading the dialogue? How well do you remember that first meeting?
Well, Mason came in at the end of the day for his block of chem reads. I'd been there all day.
No, I could tell because she walked in, she was so calm.
Because I was kind of, because in my mind, because I'd already read
pants.
because I'd already read with two people that day, so I kind of went into it with a kind of they've seen me read now.
She had a confidence.
But it wasn't even a thing of I've got the part. It was just a thing of I either have got it by now or I haven't. Because if I'm doing the wrong thing, then they will have seen that twice. This will be the third time they've watched me do it wrong. So there's actually nothing. I've got my version of this character. That's all I can really do. And I saw Mason he was in another room and I was in a hallway, and I was very calm by this point, borderline comatose because of
you really weren't.
How
it freaked
long
me out.
the day had been. And I saw Mason, and because he'd only just got there, he was just pacing back and forth. And I remember being like, oh my God, if this kid is good, then this is absolutely going to be Hiccup. And I remember we went in together and we read, and it was just from so early on. I just remember kind of watching Mason acting and speaking to Dean and the producers and just behaving and just being like, it's so interesting because they've managed to get in. They've flown in this guy from Texas who's just so spot on. It's actually kind of unbelievable. It's really remarkable. And then when we left the room, I said to Lucy Bevan, who's the casting director, and I was like, he's really wonderful, he's really special. And she was like, oh, you think so? And I was like, yeah, I want him to get the part more than I want to get the part, and I really want to get the part. And she was like, oh, okay, good to know. And then when I got cast, one of the first questions I asked was, who's Hiccup? Who have you gone for? And when they told me Mason, I just remember kind of being like, it's so wonderful to get to work with someone from when they're, I mean, obviously I was much younger as well, but when they're much younger, and to kind of know that it's like, oh my God, the whole world is about to fall in love with you and you don't even know yet. And just to know that from so early on with Mason was just like, it was amazing. It was really, really special. So I feel very fortunate that I've got to be, what?
No, it was so sweet. I was just listening.
But yeah, so I think we had good chemistry, is what I'm trying to say.
I agree.
Yeah. What was your kind of first meeting with Mason Thames, who plays your son, like? What was that? Yeah, how did you kind of first meet him on set? And
I met him before, and but, you know, we were, I forget, I think we were somewhere about to do a rehearsal, and somebody said he'd stayed behind because he wanted to say hello, and he was just so nice, and he was so kind of excited, and he's a really good kid. He's got a smart head on his shoulders, and he's very talented, and you know, he was just so happy to be there, which is great. Somebody can be happy to be there, but does that mean they're going to bring it? Then when we were on set doing those scenes, I was like, oh, this kid's good. This kid's really good.
And, you know, obviously whenever there's a live action remake of an animation, the question has to be asked, what is this one doing that perhaps couldn't be done by animation or wasn't done in animation? What do you think is the answer to that question with this film?
Well, you know, I don't think there's anybody who sits in this movie who's even questioning that anymore, you know, looking back to the animation. I think it brings a whole other world, you know, we talk about the animation was fantasy, you enjoyed it, but you almost felt you were a little bit of a step removed. In this, I feel like you are sucked into this world. You are flying with the dragons, you know, and you're really emotionally more involved because the characters are more relatable. So I think it's a more emotional journey. It's a more spellbinding journey. It's taken it to a whole new level in every way: artistry, production design, performances, music. I think that, yeah, just to take the experience of this movie, nobody is coming out of there then other than this, kind of going, oh, now I get it. Okay, now I get why they did it. Because it's a whole new thing.
And was it interesting for you that Dean was directing it, having done those animated versions as well? Did that give a kind of extra bonus?
It was just like I can't imagine anybody else playing Stoick. I can't imagine anybody else having taken this. He understands it so deeply, and what an audience can enjoy and take for granted and just go, oh, what every one of those moments, every one of those story points, every movement of you know, like Toothless, they all have to be created, and they're all created from his mind and his vision. And I couldn't praise his genius and the people behind him enough. I can't wait. I'm so excited when you make a movie every now and again. You always talk well about your movies, but sometimes you make a movie and you go, I can't wait for people to see this for real. Yeah. You know?
I read as well that there was, you know, some of the conditions when you were filming the training scenes in the arena were not the best, shall we say, not very sunny.
Yeah.
What was the kind of atmosphere on set like when you were, you know, battling the wind and the rain and the snow?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't so much, well, it was a bit of wind, but it was cold. It was like -5, and the set was right on like the seafront, so the wind was whipping through the set. And I always find when those conditions are kind of prevalent, that everyone pulls together a little bit, you know, and it's a bit where you all share like a bad time. You seem to kind of be quite buoyant because of it. I think I'd hate to see what the film's gas bottle budget was, because like every time someone said cut, like 40 people would come out of the woodwork all holding gas heaters, and they just put them around each actor. Then they put 3 or 4 coats on, and then you just have to sit like that until they said, okay, let's turn over, and then the bottles would go and all the coats would come off. Which, that's the bit that really hurt. So eventually I'd be like, I'm all right for bottles. Because it hurt more than taking away than just like standing in the cold.
Yeah. But before I finished, I wondered if I could just very quickly ask you a quick question about Hagrid, who we know you're playing in the TV show. I know you've said that you're looking forward to the fact that it's one series per book. Is there any particular book storylines that maybe weren't in the previous films that you're looking forward to getting to explore?
I am in the hands of Mark Mylod and Francesca Gardner, and I've got the first couple of scripts, and you know, I just want to see what they want me to do. So I can't wait.
Yeah, and have you had much of? I mean, I guess everyone's excited to see what this version of Hagrid's going to look like compared to Robbie Coltrane's version. Have you had any kind of conversations so far about what?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course I have. We start shooting in 3 weeks. Yeah, of course I have.